This week, however, media are full of a multi-billion corruption case in Ukraine targeting the inner circle of the same President Zelensky. Is this something we really want in the EU? Thanks to the invitation by the Patriots, we had Professor John Merzheimer in the Parliament. He painted a bleak picture concerning Ukraine. The war is a result of an unwise attempt to enlarge NATO. The United States will pivot to Asia. The war will end in an ugly victory of Russia, resulting also in weakening the NATO and the EU. But Russia will not attack EU, not even go beyond the Russian-speaking regions of Ukraine. So told Professor Merzheimer. He doesn't tell nice tales, but tends to be right. Let us adapt to the realities. Let's disentangle from the quagmire of unending war in Ukraine.
President Putin is again trying to terrorize the Ukrainian people, to use winter as a weapon to freeze Ukraine into submission. Once again, he must fail, and Europe will continue to empower Ukraine's resistance. We are repairing, for example, the damage done by Russian strikes. We are stabilizing Ukraine's energy grid with over 2 gigawatts of electricity exports from the Union to Ukraine. And we are protecting critical infrastructure, for example, with new anti-drone equipment. So this winter will shape the future of the war, and our response must rise to the challenge. And this is why we will disburse today almost 6 billion euros from the ERA loan and the Ukraine facility to Ukraine. And this is why I very much welcome the European Council's very clear commitment in the last meeting to cover Ukraine's financial needs for the next 2 years, 2026, 2027. It's clear we will deliver and we will cover the financial needs of Ukraine for the next 2 years. The discussion is now on the how. And there are 3 options. Option 1 is to use the budget's headroom to raise money on the capital markets. Option 2 is to have an intergovernmental agreement that member states raise the necessary capital by themselves. And option 3 is to have a reparations loan. This is based on immobilized Russian asset. So this would mean take the cash balances from the immobilized Russian assets, hand them as a loan to Ukraine, and Ukraine has to pay back this loan if Russia pays back reparations. This is the most effective way to sustain Ukraine's defense and its economy, and it's the clearest way to make Russia understand that time is not on their side.
With regards to the Russian frozen assets, we understand the sensitivity, but we count on the member states to find solutions swiftly on those assets and to make sure that we can use them for Ukraine's reconstruction. A clear signal must be sent. Those who destroy must pay for the damage they caused. And very much connected to this on defence, the urgency could not be greater. In recent weeks we have seen drones, unidentified balloons violating EU member states' airspaces. A deliberate testing of Europe's resolve. These are not isolated incidents, but these are warnings, and these are warnings that we should take very seriously.
But the strength is not built with superstructures at the European Union level that duplicate what already exists. It is built in coherence with NATO and by strengthening the defense industries of our nations. By the way, I read that you intend to create a European espionage service. I would say it is unsettling. I would say we can do without it.
We all know how it got stuck with Belgium on the Russian frozen assets. I think that simple question is, you said there are 3 options at the table. One was headspace in the current budget. How much is left? I would say that doesn't sound like a lot of money. The second option I don't think is very serious either. So how are you going to break the Belgian blockage that we saw happening in October so that there will be a deal in December?
He insisted on a failed war policy, while there are no necessary financial resources for further funding of Ukraine and the war. Raising the money would, on one hand, question the fundamental principles of law and, on the other hand, indebt generations. It is obvious that the cost of the misguided Brussels decisions will be paid by the European people. Meanwhile, the Commission would take away further powers from the member states, for example, in the matter of forced defense preparedness. At the same time, they continue to push the misguided migration pact. The October EAT only perpetuated all these problems. Therefore, it can be considered a failure. It's time for a change in direction.
Thank you, President. Yeah, President von der Leyen, the message is tremendous. This lady cannot endure even a whole debate in this housing chamber. They did not speak. It is the main security problem for the people, but they did not speak. Imagine that you had to pay more than half of your salary to afford rent. Sabi kapasusisas na to have a place to live. Petana socially that you have to use the heating for fewer hours because you can't afford groceries, that you can't afford extracurricular activities for your children because of the rent. Speculators in Europe are stealing people's wages with abusive rents and buying houses without even seeing them in a matter of minutes. They ask about the price and the money they can earn by renting or selling them. Sometime later they buy. And they also invest in large energy companies, in media, in weapons, and that's why they are allowing this great theft from families. Madam President, because their businesses and Trump's weapons are not being paid for with their effort or work. They are being paid for with the theft of the wages of people who do work.
You have forbidden us from freely purchasing gas. You have forbidden us from freely purchasing oil. And now you are forcing us to buy Ukrainian grain, which we do not want in Slovakia. Please, what kind of methods are these? When has anyone from Slovakia ever forced you to buy something here in Brussels?
Or when did we ever forbid you anything? That simply did not happen. Please stop with these orders and bans and focus instead on restoring true freedom and kick-starting economic growth, because Europe is really going downhill. Practically everything in Europe is the most expensive in the world, and in the West, factories are no longer being built, only closed. And is this the result of that pseudo-green policy that Brussels is pushing?
This week, however, media are full of a multi-billion corruption case in Ukraine targeting the inner circle of the same President Zelensky. Is this something we really want in the EU? Thanks to the invitation by the Patriots, we had Professor John Merzheimer in the Parliament. He painted a bleak picture concerning Ukraine. The war is a result of an unwise attempt to enlarge NATO. The United States will pivot to Asia. The war will end in an ugly victory of Russia, resulting also in weakening the NATO and the EU. But Russia will not attack EU, not even go beyond the Russian-speaking regions of Ukraine. So told Professor Merzheimer. He doesn't tell nice tales, but tends to be right. Let us adapt to the realities. Let's disentangle from the quagmire of unending war in Ukraine.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are once again debating Ukraine and their favorite politician, Zelensky. Just the events of yesterday, a gilded toilet in plastic, shrink-wrapped bundles of millions of US dollars. We have the resignations of the energy minister and the justice minister. We have investigations in the immediate circle of Mr. Zelensky. We have $400 billion energy deals and 10 to 15% kickbacks that are on the table. The European Union has now pumped around $200 billion into Kyiv, and according to the forecast of the renowned institutes say another 400 billion will be necessary in the coming years to keep Ukraine running, while here people have less and less money available while inflation is exploding. I can only say enough of this, enough with the energy business dealings of Ukrainian oligarchs.
I would like to ask you if the Commission is somehow worried that some countries could not apply the Pact on Migration rules given that, for example, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban clearly stated, and I'm reading, "We will not implement the Migration Pact, we will not take in migrants, and we will not pay a single forint for them." Thank you very much.
Yes, Vincenzo.
Thank you very much, Vincenzo. Now, when it comes to our proposal from this week, it's now for the Council to adopt the implementing decision establishing the solidarity pool. We can, of course, not know what this agreement will look like, but as you know, we took the time to calibrate the proposal, and we are confident that Member States can come to an agreement on the basis of what we have proposed. And, of course, our work will continue in order for the pact to be fully implemented by June 2026. Now, when it comes to the question of the binding nature of the pact, let me reiterate, the pact will enter into application mid-2026. There is no doubt about this. The Commission is working with all Member States and supports where necessary to ensure that all Member States are ready by then. Once adopted, the legal instruments of the pact are binding on all Member States.
My question is about the corruption scandal engulfing Ukraine. What is the European Commission's assessment of this? Is it good or bad news for Ukraine's EU accession bid? Are those hopes totally dashed now? Any comment would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Yes, Guillaume.
Thank you for the questions. So this investigation shows that the anti-corruption bodies are in place and functioning in Ukraine. The fight against corruption has been central to our enlargement package, which provides a general position on the matter. Let me stress that the fight against corruption is key for a country to join the EU. It requires continuous efforts to guarantee a strong capacity to combat corruption and the respect for the rule of law. So the role of those independent anti-corruption bodies, which are cornerstone of Ukraine's rule of law as a future member state, must be safeguarded. The Commission will continue to monitor the situation.
Yeah, but I think it's really important to underline that these investigations, which are taking place in Ukraine, show that the anti-corruption work and institutions are there to precisely fight against it. And this is obviously an area to which we pay particular attention also in the context of the accession process, as Guillaume just said. Other questions to Guillaume? Angela, you have a follow-up?
Thank you so much. Is from the European Commission in contact with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky regarding these developments? I remember there was a bit of back between the two capitals, the last anti-corruption incident. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. I can tell you for sure that President von der Leyen is really in regular contact, very regular contact with President Zelensky. I can't confirm whether there has been any contact in this context, but as said, they speak very frequently and regularly.